So in the last class, you were discussing about virtualized environment, isn't it? Okay, you were discussing about what are the characteristics of virtualized environments. So there are three major characteristics of virtualized environments. That is increased security, managed execution, and portability. In the previous class, we discussed about increased security. So that means how, in what way the virtualization environment provides more security than the traditional setup. Then we also saw how to manage the execution. So as part of managed execution. So what are the things that we can manage is sharing, aggregation, emulation, and isolation. So that also we saw with the help of a diagram. So here we stopped in the previous class. Okay. So now today I'll continue with the last characteristic of virtualized environment, that is portability. Okay. So portability means, whenever we say portability, so let it be any system, a piece of code or something. So we'll take it from one place and we'll put it in another system and we'll execute it with very less modification or without any modification. Okay. So if we can achieve that migration with less modification or without any modification, that is with zero modification, so then we call it as portable. Okay. Say for example, if you copy your code from Windows machine and if you paste it in um, Linux machine, and if it is running with zero modification or with minimal modification, then we call that this program is portable. Similarly, any application. So, and also while studying the operations of virtual machine, we studied one of the important operations, that is live migration. That is, an application running in one VM can be made to move to some other VM, okay, with minimal modification or without any modification. So that portability is possible. Okay, that is one of the major thing that we need to understand. Okay, what is portable within the context of virtualized environment? Okay, that is, look at the first point: safely moved and executed on top of different virtual machine. That's what the first point. Second point is application development cycle is more flexible and application deployment very straightforward. So that means, see, after the evolution of cloud computing and DevOps culture in the industry, so the application release cycle has become, okay. So that means the updates are released very quick because of the DevOps teams, and that has become very straightforward. See, some 20 years ago, what we used to do to release the new version of the software, so we used to do it everything manually, but now everything is being automated. So just we need few technical guys to monitor the entire automation process. Okay, that means, so once the final build is ready, so the deployment is very easy now because of the availability of automation tools. Okay, in that sense, so they are telling that in the second point, application lifecycle development has become more flexible, and application deployment is very straightforward because of the um, evolution of automation, software automation. Okay, so in software automation, they create something called as the pipelining. Okay, so for example, once you are done with the final build, it will be automatically taken for testing. Then automatically it will be checked whether it meets all the requirements or not. In case if it meets all the requirements, okay, automatically the test report will be generated, and the final build will be sent for deployment. Okay, these processes can be automated. So to achieve this, okay, they will build something called as a automation pipeline. Okay, next is availability of system is with you. Okay, let us see overall managing participants. Okay, so then availability of system is with you. So that means, so every time the service is up and running, okay. So since now the cloud also supports for software automation, so the deployment process has become very straightforward, and the new updates are available with you. Okay, that's about the portability. Okay, so therefore now we are done with the characteristics of virtualized environments. So that is increased security and managed resources and Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, and the last one is portability. Okay. So, next is taxonomy of virtualization techniques. So, virtualization is mainly used to emulate the execution environment that we also saw with the help of the diagram. So, what are the things that can be emulated by using an execution environment by using the virtualization layer? Okay. So, therefore, virtualization is mainly used to emulate the execution environment, storage, and network. Okay. So, this execution environment emulation also contains so emulating the hardware resources. That means providing mirror copy of the virtual copy of the physical resources to the guest OS and its applications, and storage and network based emulations. And execution environment is broadly classified into two types. That is, one is process level and system level. Okay. So process level execution means so when you implement hypervisor on top of the existing operating system. We call it as process level execution environment. Okay, and a system level means when you implement directly the hypervisor on the hardware and do not or minimum requirement of existing operating system, then we call it as system level. So that means when you want to achieve system level execution environment, so that means the host operating system is optional. In some cases, it is not at all required. Straight away on the bare hardware, you can install the hypervisor, or in some cases, you may need minimum support from the host operating system to install the hypervisor. Okay, both are possible. So we have a hypervisor which can be installed directly upon the bare hardware, and also at the same time we have virtual machines which can be installed with the help of the host operating system. Okay, so that's why we have two types: process level and system level. So for process level, existing operating system is mandatory. For system level, okay, it may be required or may not be required. Okay, both are possible. Okay, this diagram gives you the different taxonomy that we use within the context of virtualization. So which are already execution environment means already I have to. Okay, so execution environment is divided into two types: process level and system level. Okay, and the process level does is emulation, and high level it contains the high level virtual machine. So why we call it as high level virtual machine means in process level because the VM is installed upon the operating system, so hence we call it as high level VM, and it supports multi-programming. So because here you have the operating system which will do multi-programming. So multi-programming means, as you know, executing concurrent threads simultaneously. Okay, and system level you have hardware assisted virtualization. That is one variant of virtualization. We call it as hardware level or hardware assisted virtualization. Okay, later we'll see one by one what are these things. So then full virtualization, para virtualization, and partial virtualization. So these are the important concepts which we'll be studying one by one. Okay. So then, so the application model used at emulation level is application level virtualization model, and is programming level virtualization model for high level VM to implement high level virtual machine. Okay, so and to achieve multi-programming we need the help of operating system. So that means if we have the host operating system or any operating system, then only we need it is possible for us to achieve multi-programming. Okay, so that's about the taxonomy of virtualization. Then execution virtualization, it defines interface between levels of abstraction which hide implementation details. So that means basically when we say virtualization, so actually that's a will be so when we say virtualization, we need hypervisor. So upon that we install the virtual machine. So virtual machine are the workstation. Say for example, VM workstation, which is nothing but a graphical user interface. It provides a dashboard for us, using which we can do certain customization related things with respect to managing the resources. Then virtualization techniques actually replace one of the layers and intercept the calls that are directed towards it. See, carefully observe this statement. Virtualization techniques actually replace one of the layers. Say, for example, if you do OS level virtualization, it will replace the OS level. if we do hardware level virtualization, so it will replace that hardware layer. In that sense, virtualization techniques actually replace one of the layers and intercept the calls that are directed towards it. So, and this diagram represents the machine reference model used for virtualization. Okay. So once again, I repeat, this model represents the machine reference model. Okay. So look at in the lower level, you have hardware, and okay, when you say hardware, okay, basically those are the physical components, but in computing, the hardware is expressed in terms of instruction set because every hardware is compatible with certain particular instruction set. Okay, so that's why they are telling hardware is expressed in terms of instruction set architecture. That is ISA. ISA stands for instruction set architecture. So above hardware, you have a operating system. Okay, and you can see this ISA forms the bridge between, or it acts as a bridge between hardware and the operating system. That means, so if uh, if operating system is executing any instruction, okay, so this ISA will check. Okay, it will understand, it will interpret, and it will understand in terms of machine language. Okay, what is that instruction? Accordingly, it will allocate the resources. Okay, so it will understand whether the the instruction of the OS, whether it is requesting the CPU, or it is whether it is requesting for the IO channels, or whether it is requesting for the mm, memory storage. Okay, so that means, so this ISA forms the interface between the hardware and the operating system. Similarly, we have ABI, so that is the application binary interface. So that acts as a bridge between libraries and the operating system. So what are libraries here? See, if you want to run any application, so it will be it uses a lot of inbuilt functions and dynamic linked libraries. So all those things together will form libraries. Okay. So for example, if you want to install Java based application, so basically your system should have the JVM, and it should have the runtime environment. Okay, what we call as JRE. Then upon that, JDK is required, because that JDK contains libraries that are required for the application to run it efficiently on your operating system platform. Okay, that is called as libraries. Okay, so next upon that there will be application. So now in between library and application there is API. So that means applications basically uses API to interact with the libraries. Okay, so that's the thing. And the same thing, okay, in the right side they have given it in more abstract level. So more, okay, so you have the hardware. So operating system will use instruction set architecture, that is instruction sets, to interact with the hardware, and libraries will use system calls to interact with the operating system. At the same time, libraries can directly interact with the hardware by using instruction set. Okay, and applications will use APIs if they want to interact with the libraries. Okay, that means if they want to access any functionalities, if they want to execute any inbuilt functionality, it will make use of the APIs. Okay, and in turn, APIs will libraries will make use of the operating system, and in turn, operating system will make use of the ISA. And also, it is possible for the application. Okay, say sometimes we say that this application is dependent on particular hardware. Okay, so when we say if any application is dependent on a particular hardware architecture, okay, so that means we are checking for the compatibility. Okay, so that is why we need virtualization. Say for example, now I have some particular hardware which doesn't support my application. Then I can do only two things. So one thing is just replace the hardware or install the virtualization layer upon the existing operating system, so that it can emulate the required hardware architecture. So that can be the solution. So in that sense, application is also dependent on ISA, and it can also directly use instruction set to interact with the hardware. So, and application binary interface separates the operating system layer from the application and libraries which are managed by the OS. Okay. Therefore, this ABI, that is application binary interface, that separates operating system and the libraries which are managed by the operating system. So always we need to remember that the libraries, whatever the, when we say library, okay, say for example JDK library, even though that is part of JDK, but those things are managed by the operating system. Okay, that means without the intervention of operating system, even your JDK cannot allocate resources, library related resources to your applications. Okay, next concept. Okay, continue. So API, so already we know, because we have learned so for so many languages, and we have used APIs in .NET, Java, and other programming languages. So it's an interface. It interfaces applications to libraries and underlying operating system. And this machine reference model, it's a layered approach. That means each layer provides supports to its upper, to its lower layer. Sorry. So each layer provides supports to its upper layer. Okay, and ISA has been divided into two security classes, that is privileged instructions and non-privileged instructions. See, basically, the basic definition of non-privileged instructions is that, so those are the instructions which can be executed directly without any modification. That means that can be interpreted directly. So it need not be converted into any intermediate format during processing. So that's the meaning of non-privileged instructions. Whereas the privileged instructions require some binary conversions, then only it can be executed. Okay, and most of the times non-privileged instructions executes in the user space. That means okay, non-privileged instructions can be controlled by the users, whereas the privileged instructions cannot be controlled by the user, and hence they'll run in system space. And non-privileged instructions that can be used without interfering with other tasks because they do not access shared resources. And another important point is that they do not access shared resources, non-privileged instructions. Example, arithmetic and floating point operations. Whenever you perform arithmetic and floating point operations, it will not at all use the shared resources. That means the resources are fixed resources. And privileged instructions, so they are executed under specific restrictions and are mostly used to perform sensitive operations. See, sensitive restrictions means, okay, say for example, that can be executed only by the system thread. Okay, so that means only your system can execute it, that is your operating system can execute it. So that can be the restrictions and are mostly used for sensitive operations. Okay, so example for sensitive sensitive operations, so any operation related to the management of the operating system. Okay, so with respect to the management of the operating system, only it is the system thread which can take care of it. Okay, so that cannot be interfered by the user. So user cannot interfere in terms of execution of privileged instructions. Okay, it will be completely taken care by the system. So then sensitive operations can be further divided into two types. So one is behavior sensitive and control sensitive. So behavior sensitive, they operate on the IO channels, and the control sensitive operations, they alter the state of the CPU registers. So they are used to alter the state of the CPU registers. So therefore, sensitive operations can be divided into two: behavior sensitive and control sensitive. Whereas behavior sensitive, they operate on the IO channels, and the control sensitive operations, so they operate on, or they are used to alter the state of the CPU registers. So we know there are so many CPU registers, isn't it? Okay. So next is privileged instructions. So privileged hierarchy. Okay. So this diagram contains so many circles which are called as rings. Okay, so that is see, this is used to highlight what kind of hierarchy a system follows while executing the instructions. So the instructions can be either privileged instructions or non-privileged instructions. Okay, now we'll see what ring. Okay, what is the meaning of each ring? Okay, and what is its hierarchy? So when I say ring number 0, so it is okay. It is in most privileged level used by the kernel. That means so ring 0 is at the middle. Okay, so that is the core of the kernel. That means it can execute the highest priority threads or highest priority instructions. So that is sensitive instructions. So just now we saw so behavioral sensitive and control sensitive. Okay, so therefore behavioral sensitive and control sensitive instructions can be run under ring 0. Okay, and ring 1 and 2, that is used by the OS level services. Okay, so comparatively, okay, so the instructions which are having little bit lesser priority than the control and behavior sensitive instructions can be run by using ring 1 and 2. Okay, and they are operating system control. Okay, remember here, ring 0, 1 and 2 are operating system control. Ring 0, 1 and 2, whereas ring 3 is user control. Okay, and ring 3 is having, that is R3 is nothing but the ring 3 is the least privileged level used by the user. So that means here ring 3 can execute only those instructions, okay, which are not highly privileged instructions, and those instructions can also be controlled by the user. Okay, and see here, ring 0 is super user mode, that is it will run in root. Say for example, if you are talking within the context of Unix, I can say, so ring 0 executes in root mode, that is supervisor or super user mode, and ring 3 will execute in user mode. Okay, then you may be thinking, what about ring 1 and 2? Ring 1 and 2 will also will execute in root mode or the supervisor mode. Okay, only it is the ring 3 which can execute in user mode. Okay, so through this diagram it is very clear that ring 0 is having highest priority and ring 3 is having least priority. So we use this diagram to demonstrate the priority used by the system and how we can classify the privileged and non-privileged instructions. Okay, and the next thing is hardware level virtualization. So it's a virtualization technique that provides an abstract execution environment in terms of computer hardware on top of which a guest can be run. Okay, it is also called as system virtualization. Okay, so basically in this method, we will be having the hardware. Upon that, directly we install the hypervisor, that is virtual machine monitor. So upon that we create virtual machine, then upon that we install guest operating system, so upon which we can run our applications. Okay, that's what hardware level virtualization is. So look at here. So this is the host. So this host, the bottom layer represents the hardware. So upon that, we are installing the VMM, that is hypervisor. Okay, hypervisor is also called as VMM, virtual machine manager or virtual machine monitor. Okay, and it does the binary translation required to access the instruction set architecture of the hardware. Okay, so upon the VMM, we are creating virtual machine. Upon that, we can install guest operating system, and upon that guest operating system, further we can install applications of our choice. Okay, if at all they are portable. So in case if an application is not portable with that guest operating system, then our choice is to install one more guest operating system. Okay, that's all. So create one more VM and install one more guest operating system, like that. Okay, so upon one hypervisor we can create multiple virtual machines, and upon one virtual machine we can run multiple applications by installing guest operating systems. Okay, and you can see what this VMM is doing. As I told, it will do the emulation. So this diagram shows how it will emulate. So it is emulating the storage, it is emulating the virtual image, of this hardware resources and so on. So hypervisor, so the definition, as I told, it is called as a virtual machine monitor or manager. Hypervisor runs above the super user mode. That means it will run in admin mode. Okay. So within the context of Windows, we can say it will run in admin mode. And in Unix, we can say that it will run in root mode. And it runs in supervisor mode. That means it will be having all the privileges. Supervisor mode means, and it recreates a hardware environment that is called the emulation. The recreation of the hardware environment is called as emulation, and it is a piece of software that enables us to run one or more virtual machines on a physical server or the host. Okay, so therefore we need to remember through this point that an hypervisor can be installed on a server machine or on a normal machine, which we call as an host. Okay, even though if it is a server, we call it as a host. Even if it is a normal laptop or a normal desktop, then also we call it as host only. So we install hypervisor on the host to run one or more virtual machines upon which we can install guest operating systems. Okay, there are two major types of hypervisors. So there is type 1 hypervisor, type 2 hypervisor. Actually, this is the industry user terminology. Okay, so type 1 hypervisor and type 2 hypervisor. Okay, type 1 hypervisor is also called as bare metal model. So in this, okay, remember that point, one that can be asked in your examination. Okay, the alternative name for type 1 hypervisor is bare machine model. Okay, bare machine model of hypervisor. So it runs directly on top of the hardware. You can see here is the hardware. Upon that, directly we are installing the virtual machine. So, okay, so that is hypervisor. Then we are creating multiple virtual machines upon this hypervisor or VMM. Okay, and you can also see here what is the role of instruction set architecture. So as I told, hardware is expressed in terms of instruction set. Okay, and it is recreating that instruction set for the hypervisor by emulating. Okay, here this is a emulated ISA. Okay, now what I am pointing, that is a emulated ISA. And this type 1 hypervisor, it is also known as native virtual machine. Okay, therefore it is having three names: type 1 hypervisor, bare machine model, and also native virtual machine, that is NVM, native virtual machine. So next is type 2 hypervisor. So type 2 hypervisor, that is the second scenario. So where we have the existing hardware setup. Upon that, we have installed one host operating system. Upon that host operating system, we are further installing a layer of virtualization software, that is hypervisor. Okay, so that is type 2 hypervisor. So when we install type 2 hypervisor, we need ABI, that is application binary interface. Okay, so this application binary interface that acts as a bridge between or interface between operating system and the virtual machine monitor, that is hypervisor. Okay, it will do all the necessary binary translation between operating system and hypervisor, and this hypervisor then will emulate all the required resources to the guest operating system and its applications. And here programs are managed by the operating system, and type 2 hypervisor emulate the instruction set architecture of virtual hardware, and it is also called as hosted virtual machine. Okay, the type 1 hypervisor is called as a native virtual machine, and type 2 hypervisor is called as hosted virtual machine. So why it got its name hosted virtual machine means because it is hosted on the host operating system, and hence it is called as hosted virtual machine. Okay, so guys, we'll stop here. So I think after 10 minutes we have another class, and also we have only 2 minutes pending. And so one more information for you. Okay. So the next week I am going to conduct one expert lecture on this. So I'm inviting one of my friend who is working in Singapore. So he's a cloud architecture. So he told I can take one session, so I can demonstrate few things online. Okay, we'll see. So next week, one day, I'll schedule his session. Okay, so let us see. Huh? Next week, I'll schedule one session where he will be demonstrating some live concepts too. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I have requested him to demonstrate any of the concepts that will be useful for the students. Okay, let us see what he will demonstrate next week. Okay, I'll let you know so he'll be demonstrating during my regular class schedule only. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.